Funding for Off 90 is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
Cruising your way on this episode of Off 90. We meet some young documentarians from Lanesboro. We tour a successful homegrown business in Stewartville. We attend a festival in Rochester that celebrates the legacy of the Irish. And in the tiny town of Whalen, they do things a little differently, especially when it comes to parades. It's all just ahead, Off 90. Hi, I'm Barbara Keith. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Off 90. Lanesboro Arts was one of 6 communities to receive a grant from the Smithsonian Institution's Museum on Main Street program. When organizations are awarded this grant, they have to make a digital interpretive project. With this grant, Lanesboro Arts staff created the Youth Access Technology Project and set off to find local students who would be interested in creating documentaries chronicling Lanesboro's history. They found 3 students to do just that.
With the data I look at and the history that I know and the things that I've learned, I see communities constantly and consistently evolving and changing. And so I tend to think about small towns in a little bit more positive light, that it has changed a lot. It has evolved from where it has been 20, 30, 40, or 50 years ago. I know not everything's positive. I know there are problems and challenges, but I believe we need to nuance the narrative a little bit more away from just negative or revitalization, but more towards look at all these interesting things happening in all of these interesting places.
I never thought that I would get into filmmaking when I was younger, but opportunities arose for me here in Lanesboro, and I figured that I would take advantage of them.
Lanesboro, a small town southeastern Minnesota, is most known today for its arts and theater, although in the past, Lanesboro was just another small town that relied on agriculture.
I was not really interested in filmmaking before this opportunity arose. I never thought I'd be doing anything like this. It's kind of just, I found out about it and I thought, why not?
Lanesboro was created by joint stock company owners from New York, with a starting population of about 600 people. The time it was founded is very much disputed, some saying 1869 and others saying 1868.
Yeah, kind of similar to what Nora said. It arose and we don't have a lot of extracurricular things, and I'm kind of a creative kid, and since she was doing it, I figured I might as well at least apply, and then I got in, so.
My name is Nora Sampson.
My name is Mylan Jerry.
And my name is Olivia Obrich, and we are youth filmmakers.
In the early years, Lanesboro was just like any other small Midwestern town. Lanesboro had everything its residents needed: somewhere to eat, somewhere to drink, somewhere to worship, and a hotel.
The Smithsonian Institute, they offered us, a good amount of money. To do this thing called the Youth Access Technology Project, which I think is through Museums on Main Street, just to give us like cameras, laptops. Well, it's kind of interesting that it somehow managed to work out in the way that hers is about like the past of Lanesboro, and then Olivia's was a little bit after that to like now, and mine's sort of a little bit about the future. And I don't know how that managed to happen, but.
We didn't really plan it like that. We kind of just we went down to the museum in Lanesboro, and we kind of just looked through some old stuff, saw what things from the past might be interesting and how we could apply it to now. That was kind of just how we chose them, picked them out, made sure they weren't too similar, but they all kind of connected a bit.
A couple hours of brainstorming went into that process too, and writing it up on our whiteboards and here's what you can pick from. What do you think?
So what caused the transformation in Lanesboro from its semi-neglected state to the vibrant town it is today?
The trail was the first huge factor, I think, that really brought southeastern Minnesota as well as Lanesboro a lot of growth.
We really did help each other. We would help each other set up cameras, set up chairs, all of that. Mai and I would often ask each other about questions we were doing them, help each other review them, stuff like that.
Agriculture is undeniably a part of many families' history. When the Homestead Act was enacted in 1862, many people and families moved to the area to start a new life.
This is where the tradition of family farms started, and many of the people who first acquired land still have it in their families today. I learned a lot about the agricultural side of Lanesboro and how it's kind of been pushed to second along with the arts, but it's still really thriving in Lanesboro. And I was kind of introduced to all that because I'd only been familiar with the arts side of Lanesboro so far.
It was horrible. It was literally a ghost town. There was very little to do.
Lanesboro was a ghost town in '87 when we decided to take over the White Front.
Right around '87, they started working on the trail and putting the bike trails in, and then Mrs. B's opened around that same time, and the Old Barn Resort.
Well, I would say 25 years ago, most of the buildings in town were getting close to falling down. So it was very lucky that the bike trail was built to bring people here. So that saved Main Street of Lanesboro, all these buildings.
And little by little, it got busier and busier.
I would say I just met a lot more people than I think I would have without doing this. Just like a lot of arts people, and then people who I interviewed. And I think it made me appreciate like just all the businesses here and just.
The Root River State Trail officially opened in 1989.
In fact, my son and my wife rode the inaugural ride with the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Minnesota from Rushford to Lanesboro on their bikes and cut the ribbon. And that changed the area.
Yeah, one of the things that I got out of this project was a deeper appreciation of my town and a deeper investment in my town, because you meet a lot of people during this process. You interview a lot of people, you get contacts at Lanesboro Arts, and it makes you want to go deeper, I think, or at least it did for me. And another thing that I gained out of this whole project too was just, I think, a self-confidence as well, because there were times that were definitely challenging, and you can look back on the project now and think, man, I did that, and that's very rewarding.
As you know, we're pretty much a tourist community, and we would like to grow this town into a real heavy 12-month community. So in the wintertime, we don't have businesses that close that can sustain themselves for over the full year.
One huge driver we have in our area is Lanesboro Arts.
We have a sales gallery, we have an exhibition gallery, and the organization is very, very busy with lots of other programs, which include education, artist residencies. We have a theater that we program with lots and lots of different performances going on. The list goes on and on and on.
Especially with what the Art Center did with it and what we did with it, I've heard this from many people saying how it was really important to them because they really thought that these things need to be recorded and shared.
Back in the 1960s, Stewartville was home to a tiny drive-in called the Fish House. The owner, named Jimmy, found he had a flair for making salad dressings. Today, that popular restaurant has grown into Jimmy's Salad Dressings, a company that is still in the same family, and some of the company's 18 employees have worked at Jimmy's for decades.
When I tell people I make salad dressing, and they go, really, salad dressing? And what kind? And well, it's called Jimmy's. And they go, I've had Jimmy's. I like Jimmy's. That's very gratifying for me. I'm Tom Slyden with Jimmy's Salad Dressings. My dad actually grew up in Stewartville and spent his whole life here. My mom came as a young adult and actually worked for her aunt, who at that time was the owner of the Fish House restaurant. And my dad was a butcher and opened up one of the first drive-ins back in the late 50s, and it was called Jim's Drive-In. It was a very small, I think he told me it was a 12 by 12 building. So that's really how he got started working on recipes of his own and discovered that he had a flair for it. When he sold the drive-in and was approached about buying the fish house and decided that that was the direction they wanted to go, he became more and more creative in the kitchen and found that he was good at it. And so he started tinkering around with recipes for salad dressings and different sauces and batters. The first salad dressing that he came up with on his own was a Thousand Island dressing, which everybody knows Thousand Island dressing, but he put his spin on it. Kind of funny when he tells me his story. It was a late night and had a couple of his buddies over, and they were sitting around probably having some adult beverages. And once they came up with this recipe, he was just experimenting, and our day cook, who he greatly appreciated, her name was Cora Kidd, and she was wonderful. Everything that Cora made was outstanding. We lived in an apartment at the time above the restaurant, and he came down and the next morning, and she said, "Did you write that recipe down for that salad dressing you made last night?" And he said, "Well, yeah, actually it's right here." She goes, "Don't change a thing." And that's how the Thousand Island dressing was created. After a handful of years going by there and people telling him, "This is really, really good, we'd love to take some home," he had the aha moment and decided that what if we put it in jars and just sold it at the front counter. Based on the success of the Thousand Island, he started to graduate a little more and tinker some more. So he came up with 4 core dressings. He had a Thousand Island, a blue cheese, a French dressing, and then of course, being that it was the fish house, he had a tartar sauce. He started throwing a few cases in the back of the station wagon and venturing out to grocery stores in the area. And that's really essentially how fish house dressing was born. In the late 80s, early 90s, at the time I was running a tavern, and I always knew, had been told by people since I was a young child really, that I was always proud of my dad's salad dressings, and people were always telling me how good they were. So I started asking questions, going out and talking to grocery stores, to the produce guys, and saying, what direction do you feel the market is going? What does the consumer want? And so we came back, and at this point, my dad was still running the kitchen at the fish house, and I would say to him, what if we tried a dill dip? What if we tried a coleslaw dressing? What if we tried this? He would shake his head, and it would be resistance on his part. 2 weeks later, he would come up and put something down and say, "What do you think of this?" And 9 times out of 10, I would try it, and I'd go, "Did you write it down?" With that core of 4, it wasn't long, and up till today, that we have over 20 different varieties. My dad is 86 years old and still is out here almost every day at 6 a.m. My oldest son is just graduating from college in the near future, and he has expressed an interest to me about the family business. We, to this day, still have not changed the recipes at all. These are the same recipes that was fish house dressing back in the 60s. We buy this from the same vendors. We do everything by hand, and that's how we maintain the integrity and the quality that Jimmy's is known for. The common question I get from people is, "I looked for your salad dressing, I couldn't find it." And I go, "That's because you were looking for it next to the Kraft and the Paul Newman and the 7 C's and the grocery aisle." "Yeah." And I have to tell them, it's refrigerated. We don't put preservatives in there to make it shelf stable. So our products are marketed in the produce department, and that's where you're going to find them. In the refrigerated section, I always tell them, buy the fresh stuff. That's where you're going to find Jimmy's. We try to buy local whenever possible, and some of the products that we buy are fresh. Fresh onions, fresh garlic, believe it or not, potatoes, parsley, and these are things that we have to buy, that they have to be bought fresh. It's amazing to me that people that come in and say, I could save time, we could be more efficient by using freeze-dried this and freeze-dried that, and I just say, it won't be the same, you know, thank you, but no thank you. The next things down the road for Jimmy's is we want to be able to offer healthier products. And not that our products aren't healthy in moderation, but we're looking at the younger demographic. With 2 young adult sons now, I'm becoming more and more aware of what younger people want. So we're looking at that with a lot of excitement. It's not what most people would think. If you look at us on the shelf, the analogy I always use is, the good news is we look like the big guys. The bad news is we look like the big guys. So our packaging doesn't necessarily tell the story of who we are. This is a small Minnesota family-run company, and it's like a family here. The crew that bottles and works here in production every day is a team of 12 people. We make one product each day by the same people. Most of the people have been with us for 20 years or more, and I think the newest one was 12 years ago. We really started out with a nucleus of 3 or 4 people, and we've grown to 18 people now. We had a series of ads that we used to run, TV commercials years ago, with 2 elderly grandmas, and they would hand label the jars. And people would say, where did you find those actresses? And I'd say, that's the real deal. You could stop by any time.
We went to a celebration of Irish and Celtic culture in downtown Rochester. The Irish Festival featured dozens of performances of music and dance, with competitions, vendors, food and drink, and activities for the whole family. Come with us to check out Irish Fest, a celebration of all things Irish.
Welcome to Rochester, Minnesota, the most Irish place in America today, maybe. You know, it's the most Irish place in Minnesota anyway, right now. So the event has grown since we started in 2011 from a very small, tame festival in the Peace Plaza with a couple of acts to this huge festival now growing with a workshop area, a kids stage, a lot of kids events here, and we have a massive stage out in the main park, the baseball field here at the History Centre, and it's just going from strength to strength. Well, Irish Fest here in Rochester, Minnesota is every Labor Day weekend a big celebration of Irish culture. Music, storytelling, dancing, baking, dogs. We have a big main stage that has music going throughout the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The main thing I want people to experience is that they enjoy the crack, and that's not something you buy on the street here in America. That's the music of the other world. Absorbing the music, some of the language, storytelling. The dancing, and really getting the taste of the cultures that I grew up with. So some of the most Irish things you'll find here are people like myself with an accent maybe, but with that we have the finest Irish traditional musicians. And then we've great storytellers, we have artisans, we have great displays of history of Irish in Minnesota. And then we have all of the types of Irish dogs. We have Irish wolfhounds, red setters, and every type of dog you think would come from Ireland, they're all here on view in the dog tent. And we have the hottest band in the country, Bioga, who were flown in from the north of Ireland. Here at Irish Fest, we really base our emphasis on traditional Irish musicians that are touring the country at the moment are coming here to Rochester, Minnesota. That's where it all springs from, the music. And so if the music is what brings them in, then we can expose them to the other elements of the Irish culture and absorb that kind of island feeling of Ireland that, you know, time is not essential. It's all about enjoying yourself. And sometimes in America, it's very hard. People work too much. And if I can help them in any way to enjoy life a bit better through music and storytelling and Irish culture, then I'd be happy with my day's work.
We're all familiar with the summertime tradition of the parade, sitting on a blanket while the floats and the marching bands go by. But in the town of Whalen near Lanesboro, that's not the way it works. Come with us as we visit a parade with a bit of a slower approach.
Howdy, welcome to Whalen.
It's a lot less chaotic than a regular parade.
It doesn't move. All the people do.
It's unusual. Yeah, very unusual.
Oh, it's unique because it literally stands still. I think many people go to moving parades and people know what those are like. So I think this is just unique that people can come and see what a parade is like when it stands still and you do the moving.
It's a parade that doesn't move. It's got a color guard that stands in place, and it's got convertibles that don't move. Sometimes it has marching bands that march in place, but nothing moves. You do. You move, but the parade doesn't.
People walk around the parade just to enjoy it and check out all the units, and we always say the parade is over when the color guard gets up and walks away.
I believe it was 1996. Whalen was only 63 people, and every other town had a little festival, and Whalen decided it wanted to do one, but didn't quite figure out how it was going to do the parade, because the main street's a block and a half long, and the parade would be over before it's begun. So he decided to have a parade, but the parade wouldn't move. It would just stand still, and the audience would move around it. Oh, they thought I was nuts. And I went to the city council, and they looked at me like, you want to do what? After a few months of hard negotiations, we finally got it figured out that this might be kind of fun. At first, people brought lawn chairs. They didn't get it, but they don't bring lawn chairs anymore. It's, they understand, they pretty much understand how it works.
It's unique and different, and it's a lot of fun.
And I had actually heard about it a long time ago, and I thought, that sounds really fun. And it's great. I mean, it is totally small town Minnesota, just taking a slower pace, a standstill pace. It's beautiful.
I live in Lanesboro, up the road, but we come and help Whalen Legion with their big parade here. Well, this is all right, actually. Yeah, it's and then we get to watch the people instead of them watching us. So, yeah. Come on down. There's plenty of things to see. There's plenty of booze. You can get some lefse, Rimmerkraut, and they have the best rhubarb dessert ever. And they have good sandwiches too. So.
I am the Fillmore County Cattleman Princess. It's way different. I'm used to going through and driving, but it's different. It's a new experience for everyone they should all try it.
We just have a lot of fun for the small town. It brings us together, brings the people together, and working together and stuff. And we just have a good time doing it.
Oh, I think for the town of Whalen, it's a big deal. I mean, for the townspeople, it's you know, every small town has some sort of a festival, and it builds community, gets people working together on a common goal, and you know, it's been really good for Whalen.
And I think some people kind of wonder about it, but then when people make their first time visit, they're usually hooked. Seeing smiles on people's faces, and just as I walk through the crowd, hearing happiness.
That's all for this episode. If you enjoy programs like Off 90, please show your support by becoming a member of KSMQ Public Television. Keep local programming vibrant in southern Minnesota. Give us a call at 507-481-2095 or 1-800-658-2539 or sign up online at ksmq.org. Thanks for watching. Join us next time. Off 90.
Funding for Off 90 is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.